We rendezvous, as always, in the car parking lot outside the cash and carry. I got cute once with this chick behind the counter in 10th grade, and since then she was always two things to me. First of all, hopeful for a third, or was it a fourth date? And secondly, amiable to me buying underage liquor. Hey gal, I fake confident, sliding up to the counter with whatever my family and friends' earnings would allow. You see, me and my buddy Karlis over there by the Buick got this little, how do I say, agricultural side hustle going in the Tri-City area, but more about that later. Anyways, Betty Ray slides the bottle of vodka across the counter, asking me in her sweet Midwestern tone, "Will I get to see you at the Palladium tonight? They got a jive band all the way from Charleston," she hoped. Baby, the kid and Karlis can't be contained. I mustered all the bravado, sliding a clump of cash and change across the counter. "When I'm legal, maybe we can make a something happen," I wink, knowing I'm about to sell an inordinately large amount of weed over the next 48 or so hours. Karlis, my immigrant buddy from a country I can't pronounce, was 6 months my junior, but for 16 looks like a 25-year-old travelling salesman with an ex-wife on prize and at least 4 southern states. You know, I once saw him go shot for shot with his teamster after a strange altercation at the Stardust, but to be honest, that's his story to tell and my confidence to keep. Let's just say that after that, any trucker wanting weed between Colorado and Arizona needs to go through my boy Karlis now. Enough of that. So my boy Karlis and I preload with the vodka in the car park outside the cash and carry. Remember I said that? I was flicking through my little book and calling my usual suspects, bouncers, hustlers, promoters, and those rich-ass trust fund kids that are more annoying than the piles. Karlis knows the route well, but what he lacks in conversation skills, he makes up for an absolute sheer brute force and the ability to roll what I consider the perfect handmade cigarettes. Okay, Karlis, I finished some notes in my notebook. This 5-cent book and many others like it were my lifeline. A ledger, routes, orders, special orders, you name it, scribbled down. You know what? Cops never once thought that some 16-year-old kid would be running the biggest green distribution from school and foolscap notebooks. So we got a tricky one here. That Irish guy from the Empire, Mick, wants to doubly order, but he's always sketchy and I think he's a rat. But I also know for a fact that you're wanting to burn his maitre d'. So what do you reckon? I'd try and contextualize the potential deal. Karlis, in his infinite wisdom, tells me that yes, the red-headed delight to the front desk definitely is on his list, but Mick is in fact an asshole, so any deal must include a 20% asshole tariff, to which I readily agree. After we take a ceremonial last swig of the bottle, I blow a kiss to Betty Ray, who's peering out the window at us. The action doesn't really start till about 10, but we like to be by the furthest point before we make our way back from there. Despite that, we've got several bread and butter orders to fulfill along the way. Small orders for small-minded people going through their small-minded lives. There's enough empty space and lazy law enforcement for these people to seed their own crop, but the excitement of a small bag of weed a week is enough to saturate their atrophied imaginations of these mentally challenged individuals. Our first major stop is the Orpheum. Karlis chats to a fellow compatriot by the name of Yanis, a bald-headed brute who manages to string sentences together in their old language. Yanis, the fixer in this club, probably only buys from us because of Karlis, but honestly as a sale is a sale. This joint had become a bit of a sausage fest, but they always brought lots regularly for market rates. I guess the queers in these parts have a lot more to worry about than some kid weed dealers from the outskirts. About 50 miles up the road, a house of ill repute, and its delectable distractions always lured us in. On Saturdays, the madame, who we always called ma'am, and her goon enforcer always took a liking to us, buying for staff and customers. Every week without fail, they'd offer a non-cash payment with one of the new girls, but as Karlis and I learned early on that the ladies are dirty and cash is always more preferable than a mechanical route and a week with a burning dick. We waved goodbye to the come-hither whores, smoking between jobs and hightailing it to the Holy Grail, the place where we went old school. The Fillmore, what can I say? The Iron Fist owner didn't care what we did so long as it didn't affect business or attract the fuzz, and we gave him 15% of the take. Of course, it was all handshake, but we didn't have to pay for drinks, and despite his heavy hand, we always walked away from this joint. This joint, the music was gas and the girls were obliging. We traded darts for dollars and like it was candy. The band, the crowd, the staff all wanted the best from the kid and Karlis. "What's your end game here, boys?" the owner asked us around 2 a.m. when we were counting out the approximation of 15%. "New York or LA, I answered in a heartbeat. "You're a big fish in a small pond, Karlis," he wheezed between breaths of our handholds. "But kid, you hustle like this and you'll make it anywhere," he choked again. Karlis and I pulled up on the western shores where we counted the night's takings. It had become a ritual: grab a double dog with a lot and a coffee from Vic's food van, then watch the sun come up as we counted the take. Vic was stingy with nothing, packing these dogs with kraut, cheese, chili, mustard, and those butter-saturated buns. The whole thing felt like a hug from your mama, something that Karlis and I hadn't experienced for many, many moons. Karlis thumped his indigestion-pained chest, letting the food vibrate down his esophagus. "I've always known that you want more," he finished his mouthful before continuing. "But if you leave, can I come too?" I saw a rare moment of vulnerability from my dear friend. It took me by surprise, and I never thought about life without him, without the kid and Karlis. I was shocked. If there's ever a time where we're not connected, at least in some way, I drew a breath from our shared cigarettes. Well, if that place exists, I don't want to be there.